Marcus Thompson checked his watch as he pulled into the parking garage beneath Broadway Tower in downtown Nashville. 6:47 p.m., and they were right on time. Before starting the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now let's get back to the video. "Daddy, are we really eating at the fancy restaurant?" His daughter Emma bounced in her booster seat, and her new birthday dress, pink with sparkles, caught the overhead lights. "We really are, sweetheart," Marcus said, smiling at her in the rearview mirror. 8 years old deserves something special. His wife Nicole reached over and squeezed his hand. "You sure about this place? The reviews said it's pretty expensive. It's her birthday, and besides, we've been saving up. One nice dinner won't break us." Marcus had made the reservation at Grayson's Fine Dining 3 weeks ago. It was one of Nashville's most prestigious restaurants, the kind of place where state senators took visiting dignitaries and where business deals were sealed over $100 steaks. You needed a reservation a month in advance just to get a table. They walked through the parking garage toward the elevator. Marcus wore his best navy blazer and tie, while Nicole had on an elegant burgundy dress. Emma wore her birthday outfit, and their 6-year-old son Jordan looked like a miniature businessman in his little suit. "Remember," Nicole said to the kids, "best manners tonight. Inside voices, please, and thank you. Napkins and laps." "We know, Mom," Jordan said, rolling his eyes with the exasperation only a 6-year-old could muster. The elevator opened directly into the restaurant's lobby with marble floors and crystal chandeliers and the soft sound of classical music. A massive flower arrangement sat on a pedestal in the center, probably costing more than Marcus's monthly car payment. A hostess stood behind a sleek wooden podium with her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun and wearing all black. She looked up as they approached, and Marcus caught it just for a second, the flicker of surprise, then something else. Disapproval maybe, or assessment. "Good evening," Marcus said warmly. "Reservation for Thompson at 7 o'clock. The hostess looked down at her computer screen, and her fingers clicked across the keyboard. "Thompson?" "Yes, ma'am, party of 4. I called 3 weeks ago." More clicking and a slight frown. "I'm sorry, I'm not seeing that in our system." Marcus felt Nicole tense beside him. "That's strange. I got a confirmation email, and I can pull it up on my phone if you need." "That won't be necessary," a new voice said. A man approached from the dining room, mid-50s, with silver hair perfectly styled and wearing an expensive charcoal suit that probably cost more than Marcus made in a week. His face carried the kind of authority that came from years of being the most important person in any room. "I'm Robert Grayson," the man said without offering a handshake, "owner of this establishment." "Is there a problem?" The hostess glanced at him. "They say they have a reservation, but I can't find it in the system." Grayson looked at Marcus, then at Nicole, then at the children. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes hardened. "What name?" "Thompson. Marcus Thompson. I made the reservation 3 weeks ago for 7 p.m., table for 4. Grayson's lips pressed into a thin line. "I see. Well, unfortunately, there seems to be some confusion. We don't have you in our system, which means we can't accommodate you this evening." "But I have a confirmation email," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm despite the growing unease in his stomach. He knew where this was going, and he'd been here before. "Email confirmations can be unreliable," Grayson said dismissively. "Perhaps you're thinking of a different restaurant. There's a very nice barbecue place 2 blocks down." "We don't want barbecue," Nicole said, and her voice was sharp. "We have a reservation here." Grayson's expression shifted into something colder. "Ma'am, I'm trying to help you. This establishment has a certain clientele and a certain atmosphere. I'm simply suggesting that you and your family might be more comfortable somewhere else." The lobby went quiet. The hostess looked down at her podium, and somewhere in the dining room silverware clinked against china. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Beside him, Emma tugged on his jacket. "Daddy, what's wrong? Why can't we eat here?" Nicole's hand found his and squeezed hard. He could feel her anger and her hurt and her humiliation, all the things he was feeling too. But Marcus Thompson hadn't gotten to where he was by losing his temper. He'd learned long ago that the system didn't reward black men who got angry, no matter how justified. So instead, he took a breath and looked Grayson directly in the eye. "Mr. Grayson, I have a confirmed reservation. I've driven 40 minutes with my family to celebrate my daughter's birthday at your restaurant. Now you can either honor that reservation or you can explain to everyone in your dining room and anyone who sees the video my wife is about to start recording exactly why you're refusing service to a black family." Grayson's face flushed. "How dare you? This has nothing to do with... I don't appreciate the accusation. I'm simply telling you that your supposed reservation doesn't exist in our system." "Then check again." "I don't need to check again. I know my own restaurant's booking system, and I'm telling you there is no reservation under Thompson." Marcus reached for his phone. "Then I'll show you the confirmation email." "That won't be necessary," Grayson interrupted, "because even if you did have a reservation at some point, I'm within my rights to refuse service. This is a private establishment, and I can seat whomever I choose. Right now, I'm choosing not to seat you." The words hung in the air like a slap. Nicole's eyes widened. "You can't be serious." "I'm perfectly serious. Now I'm going to have to ask you to leave before I call security." Emma started crying, and Jordan looked confused with his little face scrunched up, trying to understand why the nice restaurant wouldn't let them eat. Marcus felt something inside him go very cold. "All right," he said quietly. "We'll leave." Nicole looked at him in shock. "Marcus." "We'll leave," he repeated, and his voice was steady. He looked at Grayson, and for the first time, he let a small smile touch his lips. "But Mr. Grayson, I need to tell you something first." Grayson crossed his arms. "I don't care what you have to say." "You should," Marcus said. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his badge wallet, then flipped it open. The official seal gleamed under the chandelier lights. Marcus Thompson, Chief Health Inspector, Davidson County Health Department. Grayson's face went pale. "I've been the Chief Inspector for Davidson County for 6 years," Marcus continued, and his voice was calm, but carrying through the lobby. "Which means every restaurant in Nashville, including this one, falls under my jurisdiction. Every kitchen, every food prep area, every storage facility. I have the authority to conduct inspections at any time without notice and to shut down any establishment that fails to meet health code standards." He took a step closer to Grayson, who seemed to have forgotten how to speak. "Now I came here tonight as a customer, as a father, as a man trying to give his daughter a nice birthday dinner, but you've made it very clear that's not going to happen. So instead, I'll be back on Monday morning in an official capacity, and we're going to take a very close look at your kitchen." Grayson's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. The following Monday morning, Marcus arrived at Grayson's Fine Dining at 9 a.m. sharp, and he wasn't alone. Behind him came 2 other health inspectors from his team, Rebecca Chen and James Morrison, each carrying clipboards and camera equipment. A closed for private event sign hung on the restaurant's front door, but Marcus knew better. The lights were on inside, and he could see movement through the windows. He knocked firmly. Robert Grayson opened the door, and the arrogance from Friday night was gone, replaced by something that looked like barely contained panic. "Inspector Thompson," Grayson said, and his voice was tight. "This is unexpected." "Is it?" Marcus asked. "I told you I'd be here Monday morning." "Yes, but I thought, surely we can discuss this like reasonable..." "This is an official health inspection, Mr. Grayson. You are required by Tennessee state law to grant us immediate access to all areas of your establishment, including kitchens, storage areas, and waste facilities. Are you going to comply, or do I need to come back with law enforcement?" Grayson's face reddened, but he stepped aside. "Of course, come in." The restaurant looked different in the harsh morning light, less magical and more clinical. The chandelier that had sparkled on Friday night now highlighted every smudge on the marble floor. Marcus gestured to his team. "Rebecca, start with the main kitchen. James, I want you on storage and refrigeration. Document everything: photos, temperatures, cross-contamination risks, full inspection protocol." "Yes, sir." They responded in unison, then headed toward the kitchen. Grayson followed Marcus like a nervous shadow. "Inspector Thompson, I want to apologize for Friday night. I think there was a misunderstanding." "There was no misunderstanding, Mr. Grayson. You made your position very clear. I was having a difficult day." The hostess made an error with the reservation system, and it wasn't personal. Marcus stopped and turned to face him. "It was extremely personal. You looked at my family and decided we didn't belong in your restaurant. You humiliated my wife, and you made my daughter cry on her birthday. You taught my son that there are places he's not welcome because of the color of his skin. So no, Mr. Grayson, I'm not interested in your apologies." He paused and let the words sink in. "I'm interested in whether your kitchen meets health code standards, and something tells me we're going to find some interesting things." They pushed through the double doors into the kitchen. It was a sprawling space with stainless steel everywhere, industrial stoves and massive refrigerators lining the walls. On Friday night, this kitchen would have been chaos with chefs calling orders, pans clanging and flames leaping. Now it was quiet and sterile and waiting. Rebecca was already at work photographing the prep stations, while James had his thermometer out checking refrigerator temperatures. Marcus walked slowly through the space, and his trained eye caught details most people would miss. A slight discoloration on the cutting board, rust around a sink drain, and a ceiling tile that looked water damaged. He stopped at the walk-in refrigerator and opened it. The temperature gauge read 43 degrees Fahrenheit. "Mr. Grayson, what's the required temperature for refrigerator storage?" Grayson shifted nervously. 40 degrees or below." "And this reads 43. That's a violation. Rebecca, document this." "Yes, sir." Marcus moved deeper into the cooler, and in the back he found containers of prepared food, salads, pre-portioned vegetables, and sauces. He checked the dates. "These containers are dated from 8 days ago. What's your policy on prepared food storage?" Grayson's voice was weak. 7 days maximum. "So these are expired, and that's another violation." Marcus pulled out more containers. "These two and these. James, we're going to need a full inventory of everything in here." "On it." Marcus stepped out of the cooler and moved to the dry storage area. The moment he opened the door, he saw them. Small black droppings scattered across the floor near the bags of flour and rice. "Mr. Grayson, when was your last pest control service?" I'm not sure. My manager handles..." "You're required to have documentation of monthly pest control services. Where are those records?" Grayson had no answer. Marcus crouched down, examining the droppings more closely. "These are fresh. You have an active rodent problem. Rebecca, get photos of all of this." The inspection continued for 3 hours, and every violation they found led to another. Improper hand-washing stations, no temperature logs for the previous week, cross-contamination risks in the prep areas, and a leak under one of the dishwashers that had clearly been there for weeks, creating a perfect environment for mold. By noon, Marcus had a list of 17 health code violations, and 3 of them were critical, meaning they posed an immediate health risk. He gathered his team in the dining room, where Grayson sat at one of his expensive tables with his head in his hands. "Mr. Grayson," Marcus said, and his voice was formal now, official. "Based on the findings of this inspection, I'm issuing you a failing grade. You have 17 violations, including 3 critical violations that pose immediate health risks to the public." Grayson looked up, and his face was ashen. "What does that mean?" "It means you're being shut down effective immediately. You will not serve another customer until every violation is corrected and a re-inspection shows full compliance." "You can't do this. Do you know how much money I'll lose? I have reservations and events booked." "You should have thought of that before you decided my family wasn't good enough for your establishment," Marcus said coldly. "You wanted to run an exclusive restaurant? Well, now you're excluding everyone." He handed Grayson the official closure notice. "You have the right to appeal this decision through the health department's administrative process. All the information is on that document. But until this appeal is heard and these violations are corrected, this restaurant stays closed." Grayson stared at the paper, and his hands were trembling. The empire he'd built, the reputation he'd cultivated, and the exclusivity he'd prized, all of it was crumbling because he'd judged a family by the color of their skin. The closure of Grayson's fine dining made the news within hours. Nashville was a small enough city that the shuttering of one of its most prestigious restaurants was big news. But when the reasons started circulating, when people learned about the health violations and the discrimination and the health inspector's family being turned away, it became a firestorm. The story went viral. Local news picked it up first, then regional outlets, then national. By Tuesday afternoon, the hashtag Grayson's shutdown was trending on social media. People who'd eaten at the restaurant were posting about feeling sick afterward and questioning what they'd been served. Others were sharing their own stories of discrimination at high-end establishments. Robert Grayson tried to control the narrative. He released a statement claiming the health violations were minor and that the closure was an overreaction, that he was being unfairly targeted. But Marcus had done everything by the book. Every violation was documented, photographed, and witnessed by multiple inspectors. There was no technicality, no loophole, and no way to claim bias. The Nashville Health Department stood behind Marcus completely. The director held a press conference showing photos of the violations, including the rodent droppings, the expired food, and the improper temperatures. "These are serious health risks," the director said. "Inspector Thompson did exactly what any of our inspectors would have done. The closure was not only justified, but it was necessary to protect public health. But the public didn't care about the technicalities. They cared about the discrimination." Protesters gathered outside Grayson's restaurant and civil rights organizations issued statements. The city's black community, which had long whispered about discrimination at Nashville's upscale establishments, now had proof. By Wednesday, Grayson's investors were pulling out. His business partners were distancing themselves, and restaurants he'd consulted for were scrubbing his name from their websites. His lawyer called Marcus on Thursday morning. "Inspector Thompson, this is Jonathan Weiss, representing Robert Grayson. My client would like to meet with you to discuss a resolution." Marcus leaned back in his office chair. A resolution to what exactly? To this situation. Mr. Grayson believes there's been a misunderstanding and he'd like the opportunity to make things right. "The violations are documented, Mr. Weiss. If Mr. Grayson wants to make things right, he can correct every violation and request a re-inspection. That's the process. My client is prepared to make a substantial donation to a charity of your choice. He's also willing to issue a public apology and implement diversity training for his entire staff." Marcus smiled, though there was no humor in it. "Mr. Weiss, you can't bribe a health inspector, and you certainly can't bribe away health violations. The restaurant will remain closed until it passes inspection. Period." "Inspector Thompson, please. My client's business is being destroyed, and his reputation—" "His reputation?" Marcus's voice hardened. "He humiliated my family in front of a room full of people. He made my 8-year-old daughter cry on her birthday. He treated us like we were beneath him, like we didn't deserve to breathe the same air as his precious clientele. And now he wants sympathy? I understand you're upset, but I'm not upset, Mr. Weiss. I'm doing my job, the same job I would have done if Mr. Grayson had seated us with a smile and served us dinner and wished my daughter happy birthday. The violations were there either way. He just gave me a reason to look." There was a long pause. "Is there nothing that would convince you to expedite the re-inspection process? Correct every violation, submit proof, and request a re-inspection. That's the only process there is. Good day, Mr. Weiss." Marcus hung up and stared at his phone for a moment. He felt no satisfaction in this and no joy in Grayson's suffering, but he felt no sympathy either. His desk phone rang, and it was Nicole. "Hey, baby," she said. "Have you seen the news?" "Hard to miss it. Emma asked me this morning why so many people are talking about her birthday. I didn't know what to tell her." Marcus sighed. "Tell her that sometimes when people do wrong things, everyone needs to see it so it doesn't keep happening." She's 8, Marcus. She shouldn't have to understand racism yet. I know, but she does, because men like Grayson exist. Nicole was quiet for a moment. I'm proud of you for handling this the right way and for not letting anger make you do something you'd regret. I'm angry, Nick, and I'm furious. But I'm also a health inspector, and I don't have to break the rules to make sure he follows them. That Marcus thought was the real power. Not revenge, but accountability. 3 weeks later, Robert Grayson submitted his request for re-inspection. He'd hired a professional cleaning company, brought in pest control experts, replaced equipment, and reorganized his entire kitchen operation. The documentation was thorough, and the repairs were legitimate. Marcus assigned the RE inspection to Rebecca Chen. He wanted everything above board with no appearance of personal involvement beyond the initial inspection. But Rebecca called him after she finished. "Marcus, you need to see this." "See what?" "Just come to the restaurant and trust me." Marcus drove to Grayson's, wondering what Rebecca had found. When he arrived, she met him outside. "Everything passed," she said. "All violations corrected. The kitchen is actually cleaner than code requires now, and he clearly spent a fortune." "So what did you want me to see?" Rebecca gestured inside. "He wants to talk to you, and I think you should hear what he has to say." Marcus followed her into the restaurant. Grayson stood in the dining room, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. His expensive suit was gone and replaced with simple slacks and a button-down shirt. His hair, once perfectly styled, was slightly disheveled. "Inspector Thompson," Grayson said quietly. "Thank you for coming." Marcus didn't sit. "Inspector Chen says you've corrected the violations." "Yes, all of them. I've hired a new kitchen manager, implemented new protocols, and brought in monthly health inspections from a private firm to make sure we never fail again." "Good, then you'll pass the re-inspection and you can reopen." "That's not why I asked you here." Grayson gestured to a table. "Please, just 5 minutes." Marcus hesitated, then sat. Grayson sat across from him with his hands folded on the table. "I want to apologize, not because my lawyer told me to, and not because it might help my business, but because I was wrong. Completely and inexcusably wrong." Marcus said nothing. "I've spent the last 3 weeks thinking about that night, about your daughter's face when I told you to leave, and about the lesson I taught her, that there are people in this world who will judge her before they know her. That hurt is on me." Grayson's voice cracked slightly. "I grew up in a world where people like me got everything handed to us, where success meant keeping certain people out and maintaining certain standards. I thought that's what made a restaurant prestigious, exclusivity and being selective." "Being racist," Marcus said flatly. "Yes." Grayson didn't flinch. "Being racist. I've been telling myself for years that it was about standards or clientele or atmosphere, but it was racism, pure and simple. And I taught my staff to do the same thing." He looked directly at Marcus. "I don't expect forgiveness and I don't deserve it, but I want you to know that I'm changing. Not just my restaurant, but myself. I've enrolled in anti-racism training, and I've reached out to Nashville's black business organizations to learn how to do better. I'm implementing a scholarship program for culinary students from underserved communities." Marcus studied him. "That's good, Mr. Grayson, truly, but it doesn't change what you did." "I know, and nothing can change that. But maybe I can make sure it doesn't happen again, not here, and not anywhere I have influence." Marcus stood. "Your restaurant will pass a re-inspection. The violations are corrected. But before you reopen, I want you to understand something." Grayson looked up. "You didn't lose your business because I'm vindictive. You lost it because the violations were real. Those health risks existed, whether you discriminated against my family or not. I just happened to find them." He paused. "But here's what's different now. Every health inspector in this city knows what happened, and every restaurant knows we're watching. If anyone thinks they can judge customers by the color of their skin and still run a kitchen that endangers public health, they're going to learn the same lesson you did." Grayson nodded slowly. "I understand." 6 months after the shutdown, Grayson's fine dining reopened, but it was different now. The staff had been retrained, and the kitchen operated under strict protocols. Most notably, there were faces in the dining room that would never have been there before. Black families, Hispanic families, Asian families, and families of every background enjoying the same fine dining experience. Grayson himself was different too. He'd sold his ownership stake to a diverse group of investors and stayed on only as a consultant. He spent his time now teaching other restaurant owners about inclusive practices and the real costs of discrimination. Marcus never ate there. He couldn't because the memory of that night and of Emma's tears was too fresh. But one evening, he drove past and saw through the windows a black family with parents and 2 children being seated at the best table in the house. The hostess was smiling and the father was laughing. The little girl looked excited. Marcus smiled and kept driving. Because this was never about revenge. It was about making sure the next black family who walked through those doors would be judged by their reservation and not their skin color. And if it took shutting down a restaurant to teach that lesson, then it was a lesson worth teaching. Justice doesn't always look like punishment. Sometimes it looks like change. If this story moved you, share it, because discrimination isn't just wrong. It's often hiding deeper problems. And accountability means holding people responsible for all of it. Thank you very much for listening. Please let us know what you think of this story in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos.